Welcome to This Old App, a podcast about learning, coding, smashing stuff together, breaking things apart, startups, failing, winning, and any other buzzwords we can think of.
All right, Randy. So I literally titled this on our screen, "What are we doing?" And I think that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we've started to put together a number of things that you and I are working on together. So
yep.
Let's just go over everything we're trying to do and why. Maybe the why's first, or maybe the why's last. The why will probably be last. So let's just start listing all the things we're trying to get done.
All right. Number one. I guess I'll say CTO Think. That is the podcast that we ramped up in December, that we talked about for maybe a year and a half before it, and actually launched it, and now has about 20 episodes in the can, or published. We published 20 episodes or so. So that's one project.
All right. So why CTO Think? I guess each of them needs kind of a why. So why did we do that? Why did we decide to start talking about boring technology executive stuff?
So there's a selfish side and there's a unselfish side to it. I'm going to go with unselfish first. Unselfish is, after my teaching of the boot camp last year, there were so many side conversations I would have one-on-one with students related to not development, how to code something, but the anecdotes, the experience, the side things about what does it take to be a good developer? What does it take to treat people well, work with other people well, manage things, get projects done? And I was having these one-on-one conversations. I'm like, man, this advice is something that other people need to see or hear or read or whatever. And so I got more motivated after that to somehow bottle up some of this stuff I've learned to pass it along.
Right.
And you can do this a number of ways, right? You can write a blog. People have been doing that. You can write a book. People do that. And everything I hear from authors, people that write books, is that it is a labor of love type of thing. It is hard to write books, and then you got to promote the dang thing, and they hate that a lot of the time, unless they love writing on a continuous basis. And bloggers seem to churn, like the good bloggers can churn out an article every other day like I've never seen. And my experience with writing is that I can write a ton of stuff, streaming consciousness type of deal, but then when it comes to editing, I take forever, and then I'm never happy with what I publish.
Right.
And then I listen to a lot of podcasts. I learn a tremendous amount from hearing other people talk amongst their network, interviewing other people about their experience. I've learned so much hearing people talk about their mistakes, what they've done well, the things they ran into, how they approached scenarios where they didn't know what they were doing. And that's really the medium that I've just captured more than any other, is that me listening to podcasts is very effective. And I think we're seeing that the younger generation is moving from a reading platform for their learning into a video or audio mechanism for learning. And so I guess from my perspective, if I want to spread the word about what I've learned to help other people out, I see podcasting and maybe future video casting as the best, most time efficient way for me to do it.
No, and from a non-selfish standpoint, all that makes sense. I will say podcasting, it took me a while to get fully into listening to podcasts. I would dabble in it from time to time. I'm not one who can be sitting here working on something and listening to a podcast.
Yeah.
Because 15 minutes will go by and I won't have heard a single word. It will have just been background noise. So it's more of whenever I'm in the car. I mean, you don't drive around, but when I'm in the car, I just plug in my phone and I start up my podcast. And regardless of who's in the car, my son's been around with me and he's listened to a lot of the first season of Startup from Gimlet Media with me as well. So,
well, I listen. I can't listen in code. I can't even listen to music lyrics in code. I have to have like Spotify's focus section running for me to get code done. Typically, with unless I'm going to put it this way, in JavaScript, where I have to think about everything and still learning a ton, I have to have this like no lyrics. When it comes to Rails, I can have on I have on rap and I'm fine because I know that stuff. When it comes to podcast, I just do it taking a shower, making breakfast, chores that I have put off and finally get around to doing, sitting outside, eating lunch, walking to the train, on the bus. Like, I listen to podcasts when I am stuck in a scenario of my hands are free. I'm not driving a vehicle, which I never really do anymore. And like, it's a hands-free type of, or doing a menial task that otherwise my brain would just be looking for something to do. That's when I do consume it.
It's funny. You've mentioned it, listening to podcasts in the shower before, and I tried that, and it's my old man in me. I can't hear them. I can't hear the conversation well enough in the shower.
Oh, well, I have a mini boom. Like, I have a Bluetooth speaker that's pumping the sound, not the phone.
Oh, I do too. I've got a Bluetooth speaker sitting there in the shower, and it's the acoustics of it or something. It's just too much echoey to hear. Anyway,
interesting. So that's
the non-selfish part. What about the selfish part?
The selfish part is we had an episode on CTO Think about networking for introverts. And, I feel like when I pay attention to the people that I listen to on podcast, they have a network. And they have a network not just because they meet people face to face, but because they get their name out there about what they do and how they do it. And to some extent, there is one of the side effects of putting yourself out there is that people listen and get to know you without you having to necessarily go and shake a hand and meet everybody. And now that can be positive and negative. I think for the first time last week, or on an upcoming episode, we discussed a little bit about politics. And so I mentioned I'm liberal in some of my views, or in a lot of my views. Someone may listen to that and go, "Oh, I don't like that dude now." And to me, it's fine. I'm going to put myself out there, and you either take it or walk. But I feel like I'm trying to now build a network because I'm consulting more and more. And, I'm happy to give advice as efficiently as I can through this medium, but also build a brand for myself, build a little bit about who I am and how I approach things. And it's helped. I mean, I've already talked to people that have maybe are on the verge of hiring me that are like, "Yeah, I listened to that episode and I like what you had to say." And I'm like, "That's interesting. I didn't even think about it really from a, this is a pre-interview of sorts kind of thing." But right. I don't have a humongous network. Like, I actually have more of a network sometimes than I think because of how people seem to find me. But I don't do conference circuits, and I haven't written a book, and that seems to be the way that most people have built their networks.
Right.
And I feel like, maybe I've waited a long time to kind of do this, but I believe in the fact that lead generation and opportunities are needle in a haystack. And I guess I feel that doing a podcast, publishing things is a way to increase the haystack size, and maybe there's more needles in it. I guess that's kind of the way I'm approaching it. And, I don't really care to be a big political, like, you must hear my opinion because it is right. It's just more of like, I've worked this long. I've learned some things, made some mistakes, and then corrected them. And this is how I did it. Maybe you can listen to me and not follow it. And by the way, if you're trying to get something built or you wouldn't need a team put together, or you need to build a business and you need a person with my skill set, if you listen to me and like what you have to hear and you don't want to do it yourself, hire me for it. Talk to me about it. And so that's the selfish part, but I don't know that we'll have like the type of podcast that's humongously popular, but we have a slowly growing audience, and I still like talking about this stuff regardless. Right. So it's kind of like, well, what if we keep talking about the things we like and then we just put it out there and see if other people do? That's kind of the side effect, I guess.
Yeah, and I've been consuming a decent amount of Gary Vaynerchuk's works lately, his content, and he's prolific on all of this, and it's the same thing, right? Which is document what's going on, put content out there, and then let the market judge what the worth is.
Yeah.
And I think that there certainly is a part of this all that is selfish and it is brand building. And if in all our discussions people like what we're saying and they want to engage us for conversations regarding their particular businesses, that's something we're both interested in. That's something we both have done.
Yeah.
So
there's a bit of risk in this too. You can also publicly fail. People can see you screw up. People can see you. And I think an example.
I gave up caring.
Yeah.
And that's for everyone listening. We recorded a CTO Think probably 12 months ago, if not more.
Yeah.
And then we tried to, but what we tried to do is I tried to write up an outline and prepare everything and get everything prepared. And it just did not fly because it was too much preparation. And then when we rebooted it, you were like, no, we're just going to turn on the microphone and go. We're not even going to talk about what the topic is ahead of time. We're just going to surprise. One of us will come up with something and we'll go.
The motivation was the domain name was going to bust. And I was like, am I paying another $13 for this? Or are we going to do something?
Yeah. Yeah.
And finally we did, but it was, there's like this little leap forward you have to take. And I wasted a week, like in hindsight. Now I just talked to someone last week about they want to do a podcast. And I'm like, don't do what I did. Do not build a middleman static website generated podcast site for yourself. Seems fun if you're a dev, you'll learn a lot, but then you'll end up wasting your time. You're dying to get onto a SaaS product that can do it for you. And which is what I feel like for CTO Think. When we did this old app, I was able to get it posted in one day and I don't have to worry about it at all. So that would be my lesson right now is don't do everything you can do yourself just because. Just use the tools that are out there.
The developer's curse, right? If exactly. You know how to do it, you kind of want to build it yourself.
But going back to the failure thing, one of the risks is that you talk about something, a project, and then you get to a point and it fizzles because you get disinterested in it. And then what do you say to all these people that have been listening to your great idea? You could be where it just fails, like, it's not working.
Right.
One example is a very prolific poster, a guy named Nate Novotny, I think. He's a serial entrepreneur developer based out of Chicago. He took a gig as the CEO of Highrise, which is a product from the Basecamp 37 Signals folks. And he video cast and audio cast, and he's been working with Jason Fried one-on-one. And then last month, all of a sudden, he came out and was like, yeah, Basecamp basically took the entire product back in-house. Myself and my team are now all unemployed. And without getting into, they didn't broadcast the details. It seems to be that basically whatever was happening between the powers of the both parties, Nate got fired and his team quit with him. Now, those details, I can only guess on this, but the bottom line is that now he's been making lots of posts that seem much more about someone struggling to find out, what do I do next? Right. And he handled it terrific on the way that he severed himself from Highrise, whether it was forced or not. I thought he handled himself terrific. He really represented his team and how he would run a company well. But now if you watch, you realize he's human. He talks like he has everything together, but he's also trying to find out what happens next. And that's hard to publish when you're feeling that way.
Is that also what part of the unselfish side effect is? We're also showing people that it's okay to fail,
to be vulnerable. Yeah, I guess so. Can be. So my students need it. I think everyone on Indie Hackers needs it, because everyone in Indie Hackers, in a way, feels vulnerable, like they're miniature, like this failing continually. Right. I mean, development in itself is nothing but a bunch of bugs and failures until you get to something that works. And then you find out that, oh yeah, JavaScript just made another leap forward and your code is old as crap, even though you wrote it 2 months ago. So right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the more that I would talk to my students about those kind of little failures and not knowing what I'm doing, the more that they actually felt emboldened to keep going forward when they felt that way. So, right. Yeah, definitely a good part of the unselfish part, I guess.
Yeah, so on an ancillary note, that's CTO Think. Why did we decide to tackle 2 podcasts? Why did we start this old app?
To me, it was more of CTO Think was more about management, leadership, less of the technical details. And we kept on going down this path of talking about the details. And I wanted to talk about some tech, but I also didn't want, if an audience was listening to CTO Think about how do I run a team, how do I become a CTO or a tech leader in my organization, and now these guys are talking about something as in like lower level of, can you use Flutter to build a hybrid app kind of thing? I didn't want to confuse those 2 subjects, I guess. But I still wanted to talk about it. And I also didn't want us to feel compelled, each of us, to always be the only, like we have to be on every podcast talking to each other. And so It gave an outlet to be a little looser, to talk more in detail. I could talk to my wife learning how to be a dev. I can talk to Mark, who's trying to build his own company. But we don't have to sit there and talk about, well, how would you run a team of people doing that? And how do you work? Empathy is what we definitely keep coming back to in CTO Think. But empathy and your struggle with your router in your house are not necessarily the same thing.
Oh, I want to kill that thing right now.
So that's to me why we started this old app. Plus the fact that we'd already learned how to do CTO Think. I'm like, this is not that hard if you don't waste your time building your own middleman generated homepage
Well, yeah,
for
and my editing of the audio got a lot faster too, because I started not cutting out every silent and pause and every and trying to really get it tight. I was just like, nope, it sounds good enough. So it's certainly the length of time it takes to edit it is like 1.25 times the time it takes to listen to it. So it's not too bad. The only problem is I have to listen to everything we just said again. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do that too, but now I have that Descript app, which lets me do my normal routine and do the transcription at the same time.
Right.
That's, to me, beautiful. Because one of my goals was to run a podcast where we could do transcriptions with every episode. And the cost was just kind of prohibitive. Because I understand you're going to pay a transcriber, a human, to do this well. I mean, your wife does this for a living, and I don't think that the costs are too high for the work they do. I just know that this is the budget I have, and being able to find a tool that will kind of let me work in my own normal editing process about an hour per episode and not add time to it and then get that result is like, sweet. Now I can really do these podcasts the way we kind of originally envisioned them. So that's cool too.
Right. So so enough about podcasting. We've got about 40 other things going on as well. Let's talk about Chasms here. Chasms is a project that we started based on a need I have within Construction Specialties, where we have technicians in the field texting one of us in the office with updates and pictures of the work, that sort of thing. And that was a one-to-one relationship. And if the person in the office didn't update Trello, which is what we use to manage all our work orders, didn't update Trello with that information, it got lost in somebody's text messages. So I was looking for a solution where it would not a group text, because a group text would be all the technicians and all the office people together, which is just too noisy. What I wanted was a one-to-many relationship from the technicians to the office, to where each technician could reach in, send in a text and pictures, and everybody in the office would see it. So we kind of cobbled together a solution that the technician can send in a text to a single number, and then that text pops up in Slack. And that it's working great. We're 2 weeks in, it's working just fine. Really are not having any issues with it. We had a couple of times last week where somebody would try to send a text. Somebody in the office would try to send a text to a technician. It wouldn't go through. But that problem has not reappeared. So it's one of those. Oh, did it? Okay.
I saw a log today that had 2 failures.
I will have to go look at it. So.
Yeah, it's in Paper Trail. But we already know how to fix it. Like it's that same issue. Anyway, yes. So talking about
the concept is working. Now, it's not worth it to this point. It's been worth your time to help out on it, simply because it helped you dive deeper on Node and Express and all that. But I think we're also trying to make it commercial. We're trying to take it to other companies that might have similar problems. So far, I've talked to 2, and one just turns a blind eye to the problem and says, "Well, we don't allow our technicians to text information. We require them all to email it," which is a solution, I guess. But that requires a technician to have data on their phone, whereas SMS messages can sometimes get through where data can't. And the second company I talked to uses a field service management solution to do all their communication as well. Now, again, that's a data on the mobile phone problem, but that also integrates the communications they're doing right in that system. Mm-hmm. So That's something we've talked about as well that I'm still struggling with, was all the field service management solutions I've looked at don't match what we specifically need at Construction Specialties. So we've batted around the idea of building one, but I'm reticent to make that jump, just because of it's the same problem I have with project management tools. There are 1,000 project management tools out there because everybody has their own way of doing things. And I have a feeling it's the same way with field service maintenance is everybody has their own way of doing things. So if you build one, you won't necessarily get people to think yours is the best. But that's kind of the Chasms product. I had plenty of reasons to get it working, and I was going to get it working on my own. What benefits did you see of jumping in and helping?
Selfishly, like just for my benefit, working on real problems and building solutions is how I learn everything. And I can do 1 million to-do apps. I can do 1 million video tutorials, but nothing bakes it into my brain, a technology, like taking a real problem and working through all the edge cases to get it working as close to how a human being needs a solution done. And this was a very easily explained problem where you could solve most of it without having to invent a completely integrated system that required huge onboarding problems. I mean, you got 2 people on your team onboarded in like 30 seconds to our solution. And that was amazing. Like, it wasn't amazing. It was just more of, that's not hard to get hundreds of people involved in then.
Right. So just so you're aware, are you talking the office side or the technician side?
Tech side.
Okay. On the tech side, we're up to like 10 or 12 now.
Yeah. And I saw the 2 and I was like, that is the simplicity of onboarding at its best.
And that's what we were striving for, is the solution did not work if it was too difficult for the technicians to do, because technicians are busy people. They do not typically have patience for figuring out a new application. Yeah. So the whole goal was, let's not give them a new application. All we're going to say is, here's a new phone number to text information to. Don't worry about the details after that.
So with that problem solution, simplicity, and my knowledge of, I could have built this in Rails within a week and had a well-tested and stable system. But the problem would have been that you are not a Rails developer, and that would have distanced you from working on it. So now we both share a code base that we can both work in, and that this project has helped that tremendously. I have learned much more about Google Firebase, and I've been using cloud services forever, but I haven't used a system. I've been using Heroku for a lot of Rails stuff, and I've used AWS for all sorts of things. But now I'm using a system that's even more managed. Like, Google does even more of the management with Firebase. And so I started to push deeper into that. Of course, it's pushed my Node and JavaScript skills, and now React. I'm building an interface for the admin stuff in React, and it's just pushed all of that so much faster forward because I have something to work towards. Despite the fact that, you made the statement to me a week ago, I don't want you to work on this and think that like it may only be for Construction Specialties and then it doesn't go anywhere. And I'm thinking that's not even the worst thing. The worst thing is that I work on all this and then somehow I forget it all. To me, it's like I'm pushing forward with building something, learning a completely new framework, learning a more and easier to manage backend. And I'm able to sell those skills later at the very worst case scenario. So that's, to me, the motivation. Plus, honestly, I like working for myself. I don't mind working for people or companies, but there's always something to be said for being able to manage your time, and work directly with users and clients, which I love to do. And so if we can build this into some kind of business that actually has an income, I'm all for trying that and making it work.
And
so,
you and I have known each other for about 10 years and been friends for probably 7. And we've been trying to get to this point for 7 years, to where we're working on the same thing. And we finally got there mainly because you moved, technology wise. There were times I tried to move into Ruby, and there was no incentive. There were times it was tough. Now, before we did all this, and before we did Chasms, about 6 months ago, we both leapt into Alexa skills as well, and we're trying to learn how to do that. Now, that you took I'll call it a novel approach. I don't think you'd take that approach again today. But we've also got Alexa skills knowledge at this point that we at least know how the platform works. I wrote one for reviewing high school football rules. You worked on one for the local train station arrival times up there.
Yeah, like, how do I feel about Alexa and these little robot talking things? I feel like I need a kid to really show me show me the utility. Like, I hear that people, like children and younger people, are able to latch on to these devices and really use them efficiently. And I feel like I'm talking to a freaking Palm Pilot. Like, this can't be all you're good for. You're clunky. I mean, Megan and I can be watching TV and it just starts talking to us randomly. And I'm like, there's nothing that should have triggered you said right now.
Right.
And so even though I built, like you said, I used Rails to build a back end that would let me easily build an app that could talk back and forth, and I could expand upon it pretty quick. But then I was like, what am I really going to do with this? I'm not in the mindset of using these things, which is not often with tech, but I just don't feel like this iteration of it is really effective. But I think somewhere there's this gap, and it could be age, it could be other things I've used, but I just haven't seen a demand for it. I don't sit there and go, I wish this device would manage my Spotify choices for me. Or I use my hands and the mouse and the keyboard too much. Like, every time I get involved with this device, I feel like I'm climbing a wall just to get it to understand what I'm saying. And I'm not talking foolishly. So
I agree with that. I don't think it's quite at the Google Glass stage. I think it's a little bit further down the line than that was. Yeah. But I feel like it's still missing that killer app, which is everything that eventually turns the technology on, right, is the killer app.
It's called, I think it's called Jarvis, and it eventually becomes the Vision who can shoot things out of his forehead. That's what I think. Yes, that is technically a killer app, but not the definition of the word killer I was looking for.
So no, that's I'm going. I think we both also suffer from the issue of we have so many ideas and only so much time. Because I'm still I'm technically not working on it right this minute, but there's not a day recently that hasn't gone by that I'm like, I need to refine that high school rules app a little, because the National Officials Conference is coming up in July. If I were to have this ready by then, it might actually be a skill that might get used. So it's one of those things. I'm like, it's just not high enough on the priority list. If I put that on my priority list, then I'm not working on Chasms enough, because Chasms needs my attention. And if I'm working on both of those, then I'm not paying enough attention to Aspire EDU or Construction Specialties, which are the two things I really need to be paying attention to.
Well, and then, you're talking about real life, because now I got a new project that's launching in mid-May, which it does involve like a React Native app and Firebase backend. And I have a normal clients that I'm working with and a potential new client that I may be consulting with in the next month. So real life does jump in. And the thing is, I'm not doing some of our side stuff to get rid of these clients, because I only work with people I really like and the projects I like, which is a nice thing I've worked myself up to. So it's just a matter of finding the right mix of things to do. I would prefer to be focused on one or two things rather than what I feel is like 6 right now. Right. But I don't feel like the podcasting is that much of a project anymore, in the sense of, how do we do this? How much work does it take? Like, I feel like it's the long-term benefit on the side that is not, to me, a distraction.
I didn't even list that as one of the things I'm doing. That's how day to day it's become. It's actually not hard at all to. It takes us the time to talk, and then just about that much time again to edit, and then I'm done. Now, 2 weeks ago, I forgot to do the editing, and you had to jump in and do it real quick. But besides that, the podcast I'm not even considering. So all of those things fall under the things we're working on together. And we could have a whole discussion as well, as far as what do we do with all that? Do we create a company to an umbrella company like Alphabet that Google started to kind of capture everything? And we went through name iterations, and we talked about the slicing the pie mechanism for equity and all that. And those are all things we still have to do. And those are probably things we'll go ahead and discuss on future episodes, as well as we make those decisions.
And I'm realizing a little bit that we're so old and out of it, because we haven't mentioned Bitcoin at all, like, ever. I'm happy about that. I'm not going to say it again. I refuse to say it again. But
no, as far as blockchain technologies, I've been trying to keep an eye on it, but to be honest, it's just I can't. I've got too many other things that I can see a pathway to something. Blockchain, it's not that I doubt blockchain, it's that I doubt my knowledge in it and my interest. I have no doubt it'll be a successful technology.
I just wonder,
not something I'm interested in.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it creates more problems than it solves right now, it seems.
I was going to say, now all that said, I'm opening up my Coinbase account because I did invest, and I'm finally ahead again. I was behind there for about 6 weeks.
I don't even, to me, I don't know. It's a database with some encryption.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
How do you, okay, big deal. Show me its utility versus the pain to get it working. And then everyone's like, invest. I'm like, wait a second. I went from problem solving to investing in the span of a second talking about this. Okay, let's forget. I don't even want to talk about it. It's just such a waste of brain space for me right now. But I think that's it.
I think that's all we're working on right now, and everything we've discussed. but I think we wanted to put this episode together just so everybody understood what we're trying to do, and that there are other. I know there are other people doing the same thing. We're having 10 ideas and only being able to work on 3 or 4. So what we're going to do is we're going to sit here and we're going to document our work with Chasms. You and I have 2 or 3 recordings already in the can for it. And we're about to do another stand-up after this. And those were kind of splicing together just the interesting bits instead of putting out the whole thing. So that people can see how products are, how we build products. I'm not going to say how products are built.
So within the This Old App podcast, it'll be a sub-series kind of that we chain together, and it won't be serial. It will just have part 1, part 2, whatever. It'll be about us hearing us talk about building this app together. So it's helpful to me when I hear people that are trying to work and build things as solo founders or developers, where they hit roadblocks and what they do to get past it, because then I know, like, I either feel like, oh yeah, I felt that way, or, oh, I need to look after that myself. So I think that's kind of we're going to have these conversations anyway. And because we now record everything, might as well keep doing it and see if it becomes of value to somebody.
And I even mentioned the other day that on Slack to you that I was gonna put one of these on Twitch. And I started to look into that, just not because I expect anybody to actually watch. It's figuring out the platform, right?
Yeah.
It's what does this platform do, and where does it? Because just in figuring that out, I saw, hey, there are other talk shows. So you know what? It may not be a bad idea. So you may see us on a Twitch channel near you sometime.
Well, because one of my goals is to move all of our Express server functionality that's hosted on Heroku and break it into cloud functions on Firebase. I might do a Twitch where I live do that.
Oh, for sure.
It's scary because I don't videotape myself coding because I feel like I'm slow as crap. Mainly because of distractions. Maybe this will be where I don't look at baseball stuff at all while I do it. I'm like, I can't show the world how much baseball I watched while I code.
Well, and you don't want to reveal that you traded away Ohtani either many years ago.
Man, I got Acuna. I don't care about Ohtani anymore. Acuna is where it's at.
For all those who don't follow baseball, they're completely lost now.
Oh, they got lost 15 minutes into this thing, probably.
For sure. So that's pretty much what we're doing here, and we'll keep recording, we'll keep talking. And one thing we've started to get feedback, and that also feeds us, right? We are highly likely to talk about something that somebody requests, that we talk about, because we're not going to have all the ideas. So we will likely talk about it if you tweet at us or hit us on Instagram or comment in the comment section on whatever podcast app you're using. Or did I miss a channel? Did I say email us?
You can post a review on iTunes and just say, these guys are great, but I wish they would talk about this, and then we'll do it.
Guaranteed.
We got a review on CTO Think, 5 stars.
Oh yeah. How many stars? 1?
5 out of 5, and they said this is not just for CTOs. This is for everyone. They have a username that looks like a Russian bot did it, and I don't know. The name was Patty B, which is also my mom's name, but it didn't sound like my mom, so I don't know. But if it was you, Mom, thank you. But we need other people to review too.
So that's the other thing. Maybe one of us did actually pay for Russian bots to garner reviews. And that's another way of testing a platform. I don't think either of us did. But yeah,
I just heard, is that Miller or Mueller at your door? Because I hear a knock. Anyway,
so I think that's everything for this, and we'll fire up the next Chasms one here shortly.
All right, talk to you later.
Thanks for listening to This Old App. Show notes and previous episodes can be found on our website at www.thisoldapp.online. Reviews on Apple iTunes are always appreciated and help promote the show. For questions, comments, or things you would like to hear on future shows, please email us at hello@thisoldapp.online. Show music is Guns Blazing by Fab Claxton, licensed by Pond 5. Voiceover work by MakenVoices.com. You'll hear from us soon.